I get a lot of questions about what I do and specifically how I get paid. Let's talk about that. I'm Kyle Wong with the Moxie Property Group here, licensed real estate broker in Colorado. If you have any questions about the topics I discuss in today's episode, please connect with me using the link below. So, I have a little visual here, but I'm going to go way off for quite a few reasons. This is just for funsies, really. But let's talk about what exactly I do because I think there's a huge misconception or I guess missed expectation, misaligned missed expectation about what exactly I do and what that pay structure looks like, what I yeah, just what I do and how I help the public and who I serve exactly as my clients. So let me start with this. I am a licensed real estate broker, meaning I went through training, like I went through my classes, my schooling. I did the tests, both at the state and federal level, and then I am given a license, which I take continuing education for, and I have to keep renewing my license to make sure that it's current. So, as a licensed real estate broker here in Colorado, I represent a client buying or selling, leasing or renting property, real estate. That's actually pretty broad what you can do with a real estate license. I think people have gone into niches where their personal business, they only do specific things, but just having a license means you can do quite a bit as far as legality goes. I can practice law in a limited capacity, so I'm obviously not an attorney, and you cannot say that you are if you have a real estate license. But what that means is I am limited to Colorado approved contracts, right? So when you have a contract pulled up, it means that there are approved contracts. The state goes through the Department of Regulatory Agencies, DORA for short. They have their real estate department that goes through and approves contracts. And they get a new contract that redlines, revises contracts every single year, right? And so it's my job when I work with my clients to use those approved contracts to send over and go through the language of that. And there are boxes that I can change, fill in additional provisions, things like that, little changes I can make, but I cannot change the essence, the core of that contract, whatever the contract is. The exclusive right to buy, which allows me to legally represent you, the definitions of working relationships, which lays out my working relationship with you, either as a transaction broker, as your fiduciary, as your agent, or just as a customer, which means we don't really have a working relationship. So all of those things I can do, and I can give information, but I cannot interpret. So an attorney has the capacity, having studied and knows the law very well, can go through and interpret what that means and how that applies. I can give the information, but I cannot necessarily interpret that. And I know that people sort of skirt a line when it comes to that, but I'm not a tax professional, not a CPA, not an accountant, and I'm definitely not an attorney. So I cannot give information regarding those things. It's just like I'm not a doctor, so I can't give you information about health or stuff like that, right? So a lot of what I do is being the glue in a transaction, because then people ask, well, what do you do? Well, I'm the organizer of everything. Right. So when it comes to having my client, getting them in touch with the title company, knowing what to do when it comes to a transaction, where to send money, what the timeline looks like, what governing agencies they need to reach out to, what things they need to look into regarding their property. Especially recently, I've had a lot of clients looking to buy land, and I guess I get the general misconception that land should be simpler than a house, right? Because it's land. There's nothing on it. There's usually not utilities, well, septic. But that's exactly the problem, is since there is so much that's not done about it, you have to do all that on your own. You have to look into county regulations. You have to look into state regulations for your land, architectural restrictions, setbacks, soil test, permitting if you're going to build, uses. If there are any covenants, or if that property is in an association, in a development with an association, you need to look into that. So I think oftentimes it can go either way. People think I know more than I know, meaning I am somehow supposed to know everything about the seller, everything about every property. And there is a degree of truth to that because legally I am supposed to operate within my area of expertise. So let's just say I've only ever done condos in the city. I sell condos, I buy condos, that's all I ever do. And then I do a 500-acre ranch all the way out in the woods, right? You could argue legally that I'm not operating in my area of expertise when you start to do that. But a big part of what I do, like I said, is since I'm not an expert, I'm not a licensed inspector. I'm not a licensed HVAC guy. I'm not a licensed appraiser. I get my clients in touch with those people with the disclosure saying, hey, here's my take on this. Here's what I've seen before just based on my honest experience. But in order to get more reliable information on this, you're going to need to reach out to XYZ. That's what I do. Sometimes I bear that burden and responsibility on my own. Hey, I'll get in touch with them. I'll give you that information, but it really just limits liability on me. And it's so fascinating how I find the general public tends to treat real estate agents as if they're in this completely different class of people. And one of the biggest financial and emotional transactions in your life, it can often be trusted to a family member, a family friend who's done it maybe once, maybe twice. Oh yeah, they have their license, they do real estate on the side. When's the last time you ever went to your doctor and you said, you know what, you only did this once or twice last year, you saw one or two patients, I trust you to do it, you'll do it cheaper. And now I'm not saying my services are necessarily more expensive, but I charge what I charge, and I'm going to get into what I charge exactly in a minute. But I charge what I charge because of my expertise and what I agree with my clients, right? Because how I get paid is down to me and my client, what we agree to. It's just like an attorney where they represent you, whatever you're going through. And if you go into a situation unrepresented, and really that just means uneducated because you didn't study law, you didn't pass the bar, you didn't do any of those things, right? Just like you didn't go probably to real estate school, you didn't study this. And so this is what I do on a day-to-day basis, multiple times a month, in and out, in and out, in and out. I have contacts, I have resources, I have experience. That's what I get paid for. So as far as payments go, like I said, I get paid exactly what I agree to with my client. It's very interesting how the payment seems to be such an issue for a lot of people, which again, this is the biggest I'm just talking homes, right? You can talk land, commercial, whatever. That's a little bit different. But specifically for the general consumer, they hire a real estate agent, they go shopping with them, and they buy a home, right? Having a hang up there or getting hung up on pricing for when you sell your home, if this is the biggest financial investment that you have, which it is for most people, why wouldn't you want somebody who's an expert that knows the area, that has done this a few times, right? More than once or twice in the last year. I just don't understand that. I mean, professional athletes train in season and out of season, day in and day out, just to even be considered. And that's just for entertainment for the most part. With your real estate agent, somebody's okay to hire somebody that's mediocre at best. That's astounding to me. That really is astounding to me. I haven't really been walking with these visuals here. So yeah, again, I get paid based on whatever I agree to with my client. If my client says, I will pay you $100 billion right now, great. If we agree to a retainer or if we agree to an hourly cost, what I typically do is what's called a success fee. So this is where those scary percentages come from, right? You hear, oh my gosh, they're charging this, they're fixing this, they're setting this. No, they're not. Every time I work with every single one of my clients, when we go through the initial consultation, either the listing consultation or the buyer's consultation, because all I work with are sellers and buyers now, I send them a contract. It's a contract, and sometimes we'll call it an agreement, but it's a contract, a legally binding contract that states these are all the responsibilities that my agent owes to me, and this is how they get compensated for it. I do a job, I get paid for it. Everybody likes getting paid for doing their job, right? So whatever that ends up being, that's what I get paid. there's nothing secretive about it. The other problem, and I know a lot of agents bring this upon themselves because they simply don't understand their contracts, they're not very experienced, blah, blah, blah. I go through, if my clients want to, line by line. This is this, this is this, this is the implication, and I always advise, please consult any tax, accounting, legal, or other advice as necessary prior to signing, right? Everything I do with my clients is between me and my clients within my legal bounds. Oftentimes, I actually do get paid from another party, which we agree to. So there's a section in our contracts that say the other party on the other end of the transaction may pay. And that's great. Everybody loves getting represented and getting help and services that they need without having to pay, right? That's how it often goes with buyer agency agreements, meaning when you bring a buyer, when you represent a buyer, you actually get paid by the listing agent or the listing party, the seller, whomever, sort of as a finder's fee, right? A success fee, we'll call it. And it's all laid out. It's all laid out in one place. I go through and explain that. That number changes depending on the client, on the situation, and that's really none of anybody else's business. What I agree to with my client is our business, right? It's like just because you go to a doctor and you have, they have pricing structures that are different. You go to your attorney and you say, hey, I'm going to pay them $250 an hour, right? Those are completely different. What I agree to with my clients is what we agree to. There's nobody telling me, there's no outside pressure, there's no outside sources. I get paid exactly what my buyer or seller, whoever my client is, agrees to pay me. Just so that's very clear. So speaking of representation, here's what I'm not. I had somebody once that and admittedly, this was back when I was new. I didn't do a very good job of explaining things. Nothing in the background had changed fundamentally with how I did my services. I just wasn't very experienced in the word tracks and explaining what I did. So I had somebody once who effectively thought I was a used car salesman. Hey, buy this piece of crap. Like, it's a good deal. I want you to have it. That's not how this works. That's not how this works at all. I do not have some magical inventory of secret real estate agent houses that I want to sell you, and they're more expensive than they should be, but I want to make some commission off that bad boy, right? No. So I represent you, which means I'm not a salesperson, and you can call me a salesperson, from some perspective, but the technical definition means I have something and I sell it to you. That's not the case. If you are my client, and I do specify if you are my client, I represent you. So for a seller, for example, I literally have a fiduciary responsibility, which is a fancy legal term meaning I legally have to uphold your needs and wants above my own. I legally have to do everything you tell me as long as it's legal and compliant with the rules and current regulations. And it's my job to get you the most amount of money, which is what you want. Most amount of money, fastest amount of time. Least amount of time. With my buyers, it is the exact same thing on the opposite end. When I represent you as my buyer, you say, I want a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom in this area. I find you that. If that is agreeable to you, we submit an offer. I get paid what we agreed upon. That's it. I don't have anything special. I am your legal... I'm going to steer away from saying that, but I am your representation as far as real estate goes. And if you still have problems with that, which I still see comments all the time, and I see people, oh man, I can't wait to do away with them. Those darn real estate agents, they're scum. There are some people that have given that reputation, and that's a shame. I'm really sorry if you've experienced that. That sucks. There's scum in every industry. Trust me on that one. I don't need to work with you. That's fine. You actually can buy, sell, lease, rent, whatever you want to do on your own. You don't need me. So for you to say you should do away with an industry because of your feeling of not needing somebody, that's perfectly fine. I did my taxes for a while until I realized I was wasting a lot of money and I had no idea what I was doing, opening myself up to a whole lot of potential legal issues with my taxes, leaving money on the table. I'm not a doctor. I could probably do without a doctor probably for the rest of my life. But I also like being healthy and understanding that for the way I spend my time, I'd prefer to just hire those things out, right? So you can get your paperwork done, you can hire an attorney, you can go to the title company, you can find your own inspector, you can do all the negotiations, you can get your own contracts, all of which I pay for. And you can do that yourself, which is fine. Actually, a lot of people do that. Yeah, a lot of people do that. I'm making a face for those who are listening online. I mean, it's the same as anything else, right? There are professionals that you hire that cost you money, that are just going to do a professional job. And you, unless you are well studied or experienced in that field, cannot ever come close to that. That's fine. Another thing that I'm not here for free professional services. As much as I love talking to my buddies who wrap cars, as much as I love talking to my friends who own other businesses, things that I benefit from, they're not there for free for me. I love getting hooked up. I love a good discount. And I love helping people. I just want to say that. I love helping people. That's part of the reason why I do this, is giving you the information that I know of being on the inside. But at the end of the day, it's actually a violation of license law for me as a licensed real estate agent to be giving you advice if you are contractually obligated to another agent. Let me elaborate on that a little bit more. If you are listing a house, you have a signed agreement with another agent, and yet you keep reaching out to me, I am not allowed, if I am aware of that agreement between you two, to give you advice. Because first of all, it's just not the ethical thing to do for a couple of reasons, because they could be saying something, then you come to me and I say something else, and then there's a conflict, and then you're confused as a consumer, and that hurts the consumer. Same thing as a buyer. If they're represented by another agent, you come to me and I'm giving you other information. You're just stepping on toes. It's not the ethical thing to do. It's also not legally the right thing to do, because I can't. The other thing is, I cannot give you legal, tax, or accounting advice. I, as my job, connect you with those qualified individuals. I do a lot, I know a lot, and I can certainly help with a lot, and I'll always write with an asterisk, because there are others who know more than me. My information may not be complete. There's a reason why I, as your real estate agent, do not do your inspection. I'm not licensed, I'm not bonded or insured. I don't even have the expertise to go through all of the things that they go through, right? How much less would you want me working on your legal or tax or accounting services when I am not trained or educated in that way? So when it comes to professional services, and I'm not saying don't ever ask me a real estate question. That's what I'm here for, especially here on the channel. I just mean the people that reach out to me while they're under contract saying, hey, my agent did this. What do you think about that? What do I think about that? Ask them about it. If you have questions, talk to the person that you're paying this boatload of money to. I say that kind of tongue in cheek, right? But it's ask the person that you are hiring. Ask the person that you have paid, right? And if you don't trust them enough, the person that you hired and paid to do that job or to answer your question truthfully or honestly or to the best of their ability, then hire somebody else, right? I'm not here to provide those free services for people who don't want to work with me. Oh, and here's the thing. I'm not going to be for everybody. And I'm not saying this to be standoffish or act as if for whatever reason, oh, I don't want to work with you guys. I don't care about you. No, I do care. I want to help, and I want to make the industry better. I want to serve not only my clients and the housing industry as a whole, protect private property rights. That's what I am all about for myself, for everybody in this nation. But here's the thing. Some people are just not going to like my style. I'm not going to be the expert in whatever they're looking for. I can certainly help. I can find another agent. I used to do that all the time. When I first started, what I would do is I would co-list or basically work in tandem with another agent. So we would both get paid half as much, but we would both bring some expertise to the transaction. The other thing is I work under a brokerage. Everybody licensed works under a brokerage. We actually also have a team. So I have team members. I have a business partner I can bounce things off of, their experience. Hey, what have you seen in this? I have title companies I can reference. I can talk to my brokerage, my managing broker, because they're legally responsible for me, and all of those things, right? But since there are a lot of things that are not in my area of expertise per se, some people are just like, hey, we're not going to be a good fit. That's why when I meet with people, one of my first interactions, either the first initial call or during the initial consultation with them, I say, hey, Look, I'm no pressure. I have services and knowledge and experience that I want to use to help you. But really, for me, this is just to see if we're going to be a good fit. And that goes both ways. Trust me when I say this. If you don't think we're going to be a good fit, you don't trust that I can represent and serve you the best compared to somebody else, that's fine. I'm really not upset about that. I'm really not upset about that. And that's true for me too. If I don't think we're going to be a good fit, if I think expectations are unreasonable, then I'll just say, hey, I have another agent for you. I love doing that. So this talks about the process. We don't really care about that because I pretty much said what I wanted to say. Because I think people look at me and don't understand exactly what I'm getting at. So when I have certain calls, right, when I get connected with certain clients or when I talk to certain people, immediately walls go up. And we do a lot of sales training. Like absolutely, it's a sales job, if you will, right? There's marketing involved. There's working with clients, having clients choose you over another industry professional. So to say that it's not sales 100% is just not true. I don't see myself as a salesperson, but we employ a lot of sales tactics and not the sleazy ones. And we absolutely are salespeople in that way, right? I mean, when you work 100% commission job, compensation job, you better be pretty darn good at what you do to get paid. Because if I don't work with clients, if we don't transact, then I don't get paid. That's why I always find it real funny, those billboards from attorneys. Attorneys think they're so smart. They are very smart. But in this way, we only get paid when you win. Well, that's nice. I only get paid when you win too. And it's always been that way. Again, I can structure payment however I want between me and my client. But I like it that way because A, if I'm representing you, it's very possible you're not going to be the one that's paying out of pocket. And B, if we end up spending 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, I've worked with clients for years before they transacted or didn't. That's just part of the gamble the risk that I take, and that's fine. But I've worked with people for years, and if I put together the dollar amount for hours and time spent on a job and not got paid, that would be quite the invoice. And to say that's not fair to get paid for that, that's really interesting because I know a lot of hourly or salary people who would disagree with that. They want to get compensated for their time. For me, that's fine because we're pretty proficient at what we do. I specifically have an area of expertise and types of properties, types of clients that I like to work with. And that's what I do. I'm pretty proficient and I spend my time wisely and I can do things pretty quickly. We have a great process for all of that. So I get you connected with the parties that matter, the ones that are going to help you. Oh, and I really like this one, ready to work together. Yeah, so I'm Kyle Wong, your licensed Colorado realtor. If you want to work with me, great. If you need help, great. If you don't, great. uh, Thanks, guys. If you have any questions, reach out below. Thank you.